Hey, welcome to BSB TV. Today I've got Scott Nelson. We're going to talk another Marketing 101 because last week we had a great chat. Scott, how are you today?
I'm very well, Kevin. Nice to be here, mate.
That's good. Now, what did we talk about last week?
Mate, last week we talked about the bare bones basics. When you meet somebody, have a look at their product, click on their website, does it work? Click on their Google business listing, does it work? Bare bones basics.
That was right. So to make sure that your first impression is good, right? We're not up to awesome yet, but is good, at least.
Mate,
So today we're going to talk about who do you want to be good for?
precisely, because you're not for everybody as much as we would like to be. You're not Lurpak butter. You're not going to be loved by all. Mate, what we really look at is once we sort of make sure functional things are out of the way, we can really start drilling in on what it is you want to achieve. And a big part of that is what we call your client avatar or your client persona, or just your ideal customer, whatever the words are to you. But that perfect person who looks at you and your business and says, I would like a piece of that. Now, I've actually written some notes here so that I don't have to totally wing it. The question that I would ask somebody that I'm working with, I ask the question, who is your customer? And this is the process of creating either a customer profile or a customer persona that will help clearly define your customer's needs by understanding their buying patterns, such as what, how, and where they buy, and more importantly, their motivations for buying.
So let's go completely off script here because it's really boring when you read. And I really enjoy having conversations. I learn something every time that you open your mouth, I've got to say. So what, how, and where. Look, the where, I talked with Tricky Richard Wheeler last week about authority. And the fact is that you need to have authority in the where space. So your ideal client, you may realize that they do three other things, but if you start talking to them about those three other things, they start thinking you're a bit schizophrenic because why have you got authority for that? You're the other person, not this one. So that is important. But today I really want to focus on the motivations. Because
Absolutely.
when we understand the motivations, that's really at the heart of starting to build, great messaging or a great website. Or when we go out and we're networking, it helps you understand, here's the key things that I need to be bringing up in my elevator pitch.
Well, it is. And, I can refer to, your story in your business as one that just springs to mind. Your motivation for creating a chew-proof dog bed was your immense frustration around your dogs devastating their sleeping area. And, if I was considering how we would start developing a profile for that, we can obviously start that they are a dog owner, probably not necessarily a cat owner. It's definitely going to be, and then they will probably have a larger dog. There will be a propensity, and then we look at the age, we would look at the style of breed, we would look at the type of dog, and reasonably quickly you can sort of start cutting down to go, the type of person will fill into these parameters. And obviously the reason that all of this is so important is, oddly enough, people don't tell me that they have endless budgets. Very unusual. Very unusual for somebody to say, I would like to spend more money.
So
unless, Kevin, you're that first person.
So you're not friends with James Packer?
Unfortunately not.
Oh, okay. So
even he would really not want to spend.
In the real world, all our people do have a budget, but you'd be surprised, their budget will vary greatly depending on how you fulfill their needs, right? So, even in my business coaching world, people aren't always diving for the bottom and trying to find the cheapest option. They're looking for someone who can fulfill their needs. And if you can't get that across, it doesn't matter what price you're offering. You could be offering it for free, people don't want it if you're going to be giving bad advice.
Correct. Because
So
you have to be solving the problem at that pressure point.
absolutely. So when it comes to starting to understand the motivations, where do you start?
I really try to understand the product and look at the product, study the product, and then also look at the market competitors. If I've got no idea what I'm talking about, if I've never looked at this area before, you can very quickly start to define a market. When I say, Kevin, give me your top 3 competitors, and I can go and reverse search those, put some data together out of software like SEMrush, and that then gives you a very analytical view. And again, not precise, but it gives you markers and indicators to sort of go, right, this is your market. These are the sorts of phrases. This is the sort of area. These are the sorts of geographic locations. And again, we can start drilling down. And Kevin, the reason I'm pretty excited about all the drilling down stuff, you might not be able to tell with these youthful looks, but I was in marketing back when really all we could do was radio ads, TV ads, press ads, buying big chunks of the courier mail. And mate, I used to have to put different phone numbers into different ads, then train a salesperson to make sure that they were following through, writing down where it came from. Like the complexity in tracking marketing to a sale 20 years ago was phenomenally different to how clever we can be, even just in the setup, the basic setup of a campaign, let alone refining a campaign once we've got some smart data out of the back of that.
Absolutely. And understanding your competitors and going for that deep dive in competitors, quite often it helps you understand how they're addressing the problem that you solve.
It does, mate. And it is just a straight up cheat sheet. We call it benchmarking, is a lovely way to say we're just having a straight up look behind the doors of your competitors. But it's just a really good way to get an understanding of what's being done across the market. And the other thing that can tend to come from that is you can sort of go, okay, everybody's doing very much the same sort of thing, is what you find, is people spend a lot of time looking at their competitors and not necessarily outside of that. So what you can potentially see by looking at your competitors is you can actually start to identify some new opportunities. Because if everybody's running the same direction, Kevin, my advice is turn around and go the other way. Because if the pack's all there, you're having to fight a much bigger battle. Whereas if you can sort of find a little offshoot in that and go, I think we can drill in on this, you can actually fight a much smarter battle.
And that's one of the things. If we're talking about the dog beds, if I was just trying to compete on the dog bed genre or in the pet care market,
yep.
Oh my God, I am such a small speck, impossible to rate at all. However, when it comes to chew-proof dog beds, there's not a whole lot of competitors. There's not a lot of people that are focusing on that angle. So, I was lucky to fall into that. In fact, I wasn't. I was struggling to find somebody who was in that market space, and that's where I saw the opportunity. So there's a couple of different ways of finding your opportunity. You can look at what all your competitors and what the industry is doing and where the momentum and barrel force of the industry is going. And then you can find your uniqueness that's on the edge of that. Because for many small businesses, you don't need to take over the market. What you need to do
just need a little sliver
is to reach your capacity. And once you're there, then you can choose to expand your capacity. But the first challenge is fill up your capacity.
Yep, find a couple of customers, and even if they're by accident, because quite often it'll be family and friends. It'll be a very close network, and look, they'll give you good, honest feedback, brutally honest feedback, most likely. And they're sort of those very early steps that you can take towards smarter campaigns where you are throwing a bit of money behind it.
So to take an analytical approach to understanding your ideal client, there's a good opportunity to start looking at what the industry and your main competitors are doing, to understand how they're addressing the problem that they solve, which will give you some insights there, which will help you find those missing opportunities or the opportunities that aren't being taken by the majority, so that you can cut through the noise and have your own space.
That's it, because in the end, nobody will do it like you. And that's the thing you've got to tend to harness into, particularly in a small business, entrepreneurial setting. The reason that people will choose to do business with you is because they like you. Odds are the product will be pretty good as well. But in those early stages, that's what you've got to bottle. What we're selling is you.
Fantastic. That's a great place to start. And that gives people plenty to go on with this week. Next week, Marketing 101, we're going to continue on with this conversation. We'll let you know what that's going to be over the weekend in the newsletter. If you're not in the newsletter, make sure you join up to our directory, even at the free level, so that you can start receiving our newsletter and you can keep up to date with the different shows that are happening with BSB, the different events that are happening in BSB, and ways that you can connect with more of your colleagues in small business. So thanks very much for your time today, Scott.
Absolute pleasure, Kevin. Always good fun.
Excellent. Thanks, mate.